Hello, everyone. My name is Katrina Volkova. I am VP and co-founder of RioDefi, and today I'm going to be a moderator of fantastic interview between James Anderson, CEO and co-founder of RioDefi, and Jonathan Shimon, founder of Aleph. Recently, we signed cooperation, and I'm really excited about it. So, first of all, I would like James and Jonathan to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Katarina. So as you mentioned, I'm the CEO of RioDefi, which is a blockchain technology company that's bridging the gap between traditional and decentralized finance to accelerate the mass adoption of digital assets. So we see a world in which everyone has access to DeFi services. And I've been in the blockchain space since 2013 when I first started looking into Bitcoin. And I actually went to a conference where I was able to meet Vitalik Buterin and hear about smart contracts back before Ethereum. So been around for a long time, seen the ups and downs and crazy things in this space. And also, I'm super passionate about blockchain because of the level of disruption and innovation that it has for the world. And so that's what really drives me and what motivates me is to build a new financial system that better serves all people rather than just, those at the top. So
that's a good point. And Jonathan, please go ahead.
Hello. So I'm Jonathan Shemul, aka Moshe Malawar on the crypto communities. Some of you might know me by that name. I'm the founder of the Aleph.im project. Basically, I was a developer for a long time before that. And I thought that there was a missing link in the ecosystem for DApps. And when I came to the blockchain space, I saw that I couldn't do what I needed to with DApps, and that's how Aleph.im was born, to be able to make really scalable solution and really big DApps possible. So that's what I'm doing here.
Well, thank you so much. You mentioned that you've been developer for a while, but I know that you studied economics and you have even master degree in project management. So what happened? Why did you switch to developer side and entrepreneurship?
Well, developer was always some kind of a hobby. I was doing code since I was 8 years old, even before. So when I started writing and reading, I started doing a bit of code with my mom, and so it was always some kind of hobby. And then after school, I was like, what should I do? And we were in that project management school, and we were doing projects. I started doing a project at that time. It was called Paris Envie, something like that. No, it was Paris Envie. And it was about the rating for bars and restaurants, and they developed it, and they started a company around it. Then it didn't work that well. So I started doing consulting for big banks, consulting for a lot of companies doing developer stuff, and also a bit of project management. And then I came to the blockchain space and started Aleph 2 years ago now.
What Aleph is looking to achieve? I mean, I know that Aleph is not blockchain, but at the same time, it's one of the few projects who are in blockchain space. So please explain.
Yeah, well, Aleph.im is not a blockchain because we feel that there is already a lot of blockchains. We don't want to make a new one. We want to connect with blockchain. We support blockchain addresses from all addresses of Ethereum, Polkadot ecosystem, Cosmos ecosystem, etc. The idea is that we accept messages from any of those blockchain DApps, and then we store it securely on the network. We hash all the data, and we verify signature. We use a lot of the building blocks of the blockchain, but it's not a blockchain. It's another kind of peer-to-peer network that is a bit even faster and provides more scalability, perhaps at a little bit of security, but it's always a trade-off. But we get security using underlying blockchains. So what we are trying to achieve is to have decentralized storage, file storage, decentralized database, and decentralized computing, not for huge workloads like like other projects like Golem are offering. It's more for like serverless small function computing, just like you would use Amazon Lambda, for example. That's what we provide for the serverless computing. And for the database, it's akin to some kind of Firebase, for those who know, on the decentralized database side. And we also try to be GDPR compliant, and we offer a lot of features that big companies might need today.
Well, we will go further into it later. But now I would like to ask you, James, would you please remind our community and also community of Aleph, like what RioDefi ecosystem is about? Like what's inside?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Katerina. To share with the community of both Aleph and the world, RioDefi is enabling decentralized financial applications at a scale that's more scalable than Ethereum has been, for instance. And we're built on Substrate, which is around the Polkadot ecosystem. So Parity Technologies created this framework for blockchains called Substrate. And we think the future of blockchains are interoperable cross-chain technologies. So blockchains being able to talk to each other, which is the reason we're so excited to work with Aleph.im. We see blockchains not as just this thing reserved for quote unquote crypto people. We see it as something that can be the backbone of the new financial system that's emerging. And so what does this require? Well, it requires simple and easy to use fiat on and off ramps, so you can quickly switch between your traditional currencies and your cryptocurrencies. And having a smooth processing for that. We think it also requires these multiple technologies, because currently none of the blockchains can compete with Visa and MasterCard in terms of transaction processing per second. There are some emerging that are quite fast, but and have more scalability. But historically, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, they can't process 50,000 plus transactions per second, for instance. We're talking orders of magnitude difference. So with RioChain, we can start currently with 3,000 transactions per second, but with the parachain model of the Polkadot ecosystem, and with RioChain itself having the optionality of having its own set of parachains, we think this can create a horizontal type of scalability while still benefiting from a shared security of this overall network, because you can send the transaction data up to a higher level chain, which can then verify and back up that data, so that if one of the underlying chains is attacked for whatever reason, whether economically or through some security thing, you have that backup functionality, and you have the shared security of this larger network. It's similar when you think about how banks actually work. They talk to each other. There's a financial system, there's a financial regulator. And so in the cases of fraud or theft, they have a way of reversing those transactions. Some people, obviously Bitcoin, it's like censorship resistant, right? And this is a huge benefit, especially when you look at countries that don't allow for, the voice or the exit of people, so there's capital controls in a lot of places. Bitcoin allows for more free movement of money, you can say, but this also entails a lot of responsibility. You have to be your own bank. And we think that the average person, the way blockchain is going to benefit them the most is by having this new, the speed, the transparency, the access to savings and lending at a better rates. We think that's going to be the real driver of progress in the space moving forward, rather than just that digital gold of Bitcoin, which we of course think is super important. You definitely need that to power many different applications, but ultimately it's the ability to work with the system of traditional finance that's going to take blockchain to the next level, because that's where most people's money lies currently.
Yeah, thank you so much for this answer. But I would like, to ask you another question about RioDefi. For sure, RioDefi is the whole ecosystem. Although people usually they know only about RioChain, but we have many products in RioDefi, and we position ourselves as we are connecting CeFi and DeFi. Yes. So, what products are we going to create in order to, let's say, to achieve this aim?
Yeah, sure. So we have RioChain, as you mentioned, which is the substrate-based blockchain, but then we have Rio Wallet, which is a digital wallet that will allow easy fiat on and off ramps, so that movement between the two systems. And we also plan to have DeFi services within Rio Wallet, so things like DeFi pools, which will allow users to access high interest savings accounts essentially, so that they can generate good yields on their stablecoin assets or on their crypto assets. And then RioPay will be a system for merchants and online, starting with online and then moving offline to accept cryptocurrency payments and receive fiat currencies. So this is, the merchant account to have access to these people who've, found cryptocurrency to be a more fluid and better financial ecosystem. Enabling those people to actually spend with the merchants who just, they want to hold fiat, they want to do their accounting in fiat currencies. So making that simple for them. We also have Rio Finance, which is the sort of thing that facilitates these DeFi pools and structured financial products. So we'll be releasing a lot more information on that in Q1 2021. So starting next January. But basically, we have a lot of things that we'll be moving into around particularly the Rio Exchange technology, which is the sort of back-end system that can facilitate the fiat to crypto conversions. So we do have a licensed exchange company in Estonia, and we've also applied for the Singapore Payment Services Act license. So we're currently exempt to operate the business in Singapore. So we have this legality to be able to move people between fiat and cryptocurrencies very smoothly. So now it's just a matter of getting all the tech up to speed and having users try it out and make sure that it serves their needs, and then iterating around that. So what we're really excited about with Aleph is seeing how different financial applications that are being built on Rio Chain, both internally and from outside developers, how they can actually store their data in a way that is more decentralized and is accessible, so that there's not a single point of failure, right? Because if you look at where most of the hacks happen, it's because there's this honeypot of user data that's stuck with a bank or a credit scoring agency or something else, and it's got their username, it's got their password, it's got their email address, it's got their, or at least it has, maybe the username and password are encrypted, let's say, but it's got their email address, it's got their, physical address, it's got their phone number, all this kind of stuff that can be used to target those people in scams. It can be used to, steal their identity and these kinds of things. So we think that decentralizing the data is not only a better solution from the data security perspective, but that it's also more in line with how the internet was originally imagined as well.
That's a good point. Well, thank you so much for this broadened view. And I would like to ask you, Jonathan. James basically just slightly described the reason why we decided to cooperate with Aleph. But I would like to hear from you. What do you think about RioDefi? Why did you choose RioDefi to cooperate with?
Well, the idea of bridging centralized finance and decentralized finance is quite interesting for us. As you might know, we are also working on a decentralized identity solution with signups and Ledger. The idea is that you do your KYC once and you go and you reuse it. And I think that it's a great match on that end. Also for GDPR compliance, it's a good match. One thing that is interesting is the ecosystem of RioDefi on the Rio chain. I think that adding all the features of the Aleph.im network to the offering to like developers of DApps, users of Rio chain, for the users of RioDefi, and also to have in the Rio wallet for profiles that can be brought cross-chain. Like you do your profile for one chain and you you attach addresses on multiple chains to it, and you continue to use your profile on multiple DApps of multiple chains. That's also something that feels interesting to me as a use case for the Aleph.im network on the RioDefi collaboration.
Jonathan, I have a question about GDPR. Basically, it's European Union law on data protection and privacy in the European Union and also in the European Economic Area. And could you briefly explain, please, how useful your solution will be for European dApps and also for dApps who are targeting European market?
Well, the idea with GDPR is that there is a few axioms of it. One, that personal data shouldn't be accessed, and if it's ever accessed by outside people for data that shouldn't be accessed, accessed, there should be direct disclosures about it. And another part, which is quite kind of important, is the forgetting right, that you can't tell, okay, I want this data to be forgotten because it has no reason to still be there. It's not a financial record or something. Please forget about it. I don't want my data to be out there anymore. So the way that we handle it is that there is twofold again. The first is end-to-end encryption. We natively offer means to like end-to-end encrypt data for our users. In our SDK, it's already there. The idea is that when you send data to someone, it's fully encrypted only for that recipient. So for KYC, for example, the KYC provider stores an encrypted package with your KYC metadata and an encrypted package with your KYC documents on the network, and only you can like read it and decrypt it. No one else. If it's with your ledger, only your ledger can like decrypt it. That's the main idea of end-to-end encryption. That means that even if there is some kind of, yeah, James has one too, obviously.
Yeah, we love our hardware wallets here.
And the idea is that even if there is some leak, it seems encrypted is not that big of a deal. And then there is another part, which is the forget feature. What we are implementing is that when a user says, okay, this data is mine, I don't want it out there anymore. If it's proven cryptographically with signatures that like this data is really this user's data, then the network won't incentivize anymore the network to store that part of the data. And always for data that needs to be GDPR compliant, the app can say, okay, this data, I only want it to be stored on European nodes, on European hosting nodes that will be bound by European law, so that when someone asks for the data to be forgotten, not only it won't be incentivized anymore, but those nodes by law should remove it and comply with that request. So that's how we manage to be GDPR compliant. It's not bulletproof because it's an open network. Anyone can always continue to like store the data. But since there isn't any incentive for nodes to do that, and it's a huge amount of data, in the end, if we get to like the scale that we want to get, it will be hundreds of terabytes, petabytes to store, and it won't be economically feasible to like store all the network. So we believe that it's enough to be GDPR compliant in that area.
Okay, thank you so much, really, for this answer. Basically, I had lots of calls with our tech lead about this question because I was really concerned about it. As you know, like not so many projects, as once again, I told really, not so many projects actually GDPR compliant. So I would like to ask you, Jonathan, James, please tell me about the next steps of integration. Tell me like how you are going to cooperate, because so many projects they're cooperating just for PR. But here I would like to underline that we are not just doing it for PR, but there is indeed a cooperation with two great projects who are going to create something big in blockchain space. So please tell me about the next phase.
So the first and foremost step for any integration with any chain, for us, it's to support the addresses of the chain on the Aleph.im network. And since we already support substrate-based addresses, any address of the Rio chain can already send data on the Aleph.im network. So that's the first part of the technical integration. I will emphasize first the technical integration, and then there is going to write on the chain. This is the next technical integration step, to go and write on Rio chain and to get data from Rio chain. That's what we call oracles, where the network goes and writes on the blockchain, and reverse oracles, where we trust messages generated by a chain as messages on the Aleph.im network. This is a reverse oracle. it's like taking the blockchain as an oracle on our decentralized network. And then there are the wallet integrations. That is the next step. And then perhaps I can let James continue on the steps after the wallets.
So where we see our partnership with Aleph in terms of tech integration is being able to tie in our various financial applications with this cross-chain messaging data so that users on RioChain DeFi applications can talk to Ethereum DeFi applications. We think that's the next big step. So you can take advantage of arbitrage opportunities. You can chase the best interest rates, these kinds of things. You're not bound in the same way. So Aleph serves as like a bridge, which is similar to how RioChain is doing it from one angle. Aleph does it sort of from many angles as well.
Wow, that's really cool. And that's really great that users basically of RioChain are going to benefit from it, not just RioChain itself. So, let's just move forward to fantastic future trends in 2021. Because James, you mentioned great points about further development of blockchain, and also Jonathan, I think you would like to tell us more about your vision. Like, what do you think in 2021 concerning blockchain? What kind of trends are going to be?
Well, there is already some trends that are starting to show for 2021. One that has already started is the NFT space. I think that there is a lot of use cases for NFT that hasn't really been shown yet. One that we will introduce in 2021 is for our core channel nodes. We will migrate them to become NFTs. Like when you have a node, it will be an NFT, and you will have stakers on your NFT that will get sub tokens of your NFT as staking shares. This way you can transfer a node ownership totally trustlessly using smart contracts. So that's, for example, one use case that I think that NFT can really become part of the DeFi ecosystem. Another trend, I think as well, is the decentralized identity. It's really something that is emerging and will become really important in the next few years. We really hope our solution will be the chosen one. That's what we are working towards. Another trend is also insurance on the blockchain. There is a lot with Unsplash, Cover Protocol, and a lot of many others. That's something that is really needed in the decentralized finance, just like there is in the centralized finance world. Cross-chain as well, obviously, with projects like Aleph.im, as James pointed out. Gaming is something that is coming in full force. I saw big companies like Ubisoft really working on that. And yeah, I think those are the main area of growth. Perhaps there are even more that I don't even foresee.
What about data storage? I'm really curious about your opinion. What about data storage? Like, will it go further, or like, how do you see it?
Well, it's needed, so it will just work and be needed. I don't think that it really needs to be a trend in itself, because it's needed by like all the others. If you want to do an NFT, you need to like store the NFT metadata somewhere. If you want to do insurance, you will need to store insurance data somewhere, and even insurance document, because the laws require documents today. And we have an upcoming partner that isn't announced yet that is doing that on the Aleph.im network. So all these use cases need storage. So yeah, I think that it's a trend, but it's some kind of a global trend that is needed and that everyone will need. Just like for decentralized finance, if you really want to like decentralize the last mile of DeFi, you need a decentralized storage, you need decentralized computing, and that's what we are aiming to provide to the DeFi ecosystem, to like decentralize the last mile of DeFi, just like we want to decentralize the last mile of decentralized insurance, etc. So that's our take on it. Is that it's so needed that it's everywhere.
Yeah, you're completely right. Basically, I remember every time at the conferences when I'm talking about decentralized storage and storage solutions, people are so excited about it, and so many projects are going into it, but not so many projects are successful, unfortunately. So, James, I would like to ask you, because on RioChain we have different dApps, and these dApps, they are completely from different industries. Basically, there is like gaming, I don't know, like financial dApps, healthcare, I don't know, like lots of them. So I would like to ask you, what do you think, or as the CEO of RioDefi, what do you think? Which industries are best positioned for blockchain?
Well, certainly, I think finance is one of them. Obviously, we're really focused on that with RioDefi, and I think it's really where blockchain technology started and where it has some of the best usages, because finance, right, ultimately is like this form, like money is like a form of energy. It's human energy in a liquid form. So it flows ideally very freely, very smoothly, and it's allocated to where it's most efficient, right? And that way you can have human flourishing because they're able, people are able to contract with each other and, create agreements with each other and then use money to facilitate the mutual win-win agreements, right? That's the goal anyways. But we've seen in traditional finance a lot of cases where that gets stuck for some reason, and how other people, other entities seem to like leech a little bit of money or things off the people in various forms. Now, part of that's because the cost of doing business, right? It's just, if you're having to transport physical cash from one end of the world to the other end of the world, it's going to be costly in some ways. If you're having to move digital balances between these different systems, each system has to do a lot of review of each other, so it can get quite costly, and there's a lot of trust in that system and whatnot. So blockchain's obviously disrupting that. But moving past finance into other industries, I think, as Jonathan mentioned, gaming is one that can hugely benefit from blockchains. I mean, you've seen most of the games, especially mobile games, right, happening through like the Google Play platform and Apple platform, right? But that's quite restrictive for game developers. I think Apple takes 30% of in-game transaction fees for processing those transactions and for giving them, access and visibility via the App Store. Is that a fair fee? It's hard to say, right? The App Store obviously gives visibility. They give the financial system to make this work. But for, a lot of game developers, that can be, eat into all the margins they would need to actually make a profit, right? Especially for smaller indie games, let's say. So, the ability for games to really have financial transactions happening without the need for this third-party intermediary, this payment processor, especially for games that rely on microtransactions, is quite interesting, and I think is going to enable new types of games to flourish. I think also the sort of the crossing over of like finance and gaming, like what about gamifying finance, and having some sort of real-time like avatar or character that can track your financial progress in life, like whether you're learning more about finance or you're earning more. Maybe you have an NFT character tied to your own self, to an avatar of yourself that evolves and grows over time as your finances and your knowledge grows. Things like that could be quite interesting, and then having that be somehow tradable or whatever. One of the things I've seen kind of emerge is like this NFT airdrops or yield farming based on an NFT. So MontraDAO, actually, our app, just recently released a commemorative NFT because they reached over 100 million Ohm staked on their platform. Ohm is their native platform token. And so now that users can, if they purchase this NFT, can actually get special airdrops from staking rewards of the MontraDAO platform tied to that NFT for supporting the ecosystem. So it's cool things like this that I think are really quite interesting. I think another trend in the space that's going to happen, sort of tying on to the last question, is more like licenses and regulation coming into cryptocurrency, and governments and more existing financial institutions breaking into cryptocurrency in a big way. So I think you're starting to see, people like JP Morgan or Grayscale Bitcoin Trust having over, I think the entire Grayscale company has over 12 billion in assets. I think like over 9 billion of those assets are in Bitcoin alone. The value of Bitcoin obviously having been right near 20,000 recently. So, this kind of massive movement into the space of newcomers and big players, I think, including pension funds, hedge funds, et cetera, it's bringing a level of sophistication to the space now that things are more controlled. So I think you'll see more of this, and I think you'll see more of the CBDCs, the central bank digital currencies, coming in. So it's interesting because blockchain obviously started with very strong decentralization, and then there's this trend of centralization coming into the space. But I think from my perspective, it's like a pendulum swing. So, sometimes too much decentralization, well, it's not so efficient. And then everyone's decentralized, but they're not talking to each other. That's why cross-chain is so important. And so it's like a reconsolidation, right? And then it kind of goes back and forth until you find that perfect medium of the two systems where you get efficiency and still this, the decentralization. And obviously, you have the blockchain trilemma. So solving that, I think it's starting to happen, and it's very exciting.
But what do you think about integration of such industries as, I don't know, like real estate, for instance? Is it possible to, is it possible for real estate to have a brilliant future in blockchain? What do you think?
Absolutely. I think that's another trend. I mean, I know you and I both know of a project like this coming soon onto RioChain. So the tokenization of real estate assets is quite huge. I think it's going to be a major trend in 2021 and beyond. Obviously companies started doing that previously, especially there was that big project with Aspen tokenizing an entire resort. So these kinds of things, it enables more liquidity for those assets. I myself would love to invest in real estate, especially in Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, et cetera, but I'm not able to for a number of reasons. Maybe I can't legally own the property as a non-resident, for instance, or I'd have to buy a whole property. And but if I'm able to buy just a piece of that property, like $100 worth of property in a place like Thailand that's growing year over year, GDP growing, more people interested in it, traveling there, bloggers, et cetera, it's like, wow, that seems like a good opportunity. And if I can get a video of it, a tour and everything else, like I'm very happy to throw, $100 into that thing, maybe get some rental yields every year, and also benefit from the appreciation of it. So things like tokenization of real estate, and it's not just real estate, tokenization of all assets. I have a shirt from a crypto conference a few years ago, D10E, and it said tokenize all the things. And so I think this is really a good trend because, like, look, at the end of the day, like even things like films, movies, the production of those things could be tokenized and turned into, security tokens, for instance, and have revenue streams from these things. So I think it's quite important to give access to what has traditionally been only for the wealthy, right? You'd have to have a million plus or $1 billion plus, to be able to start funding various things or, buying planes or doing these kinds of things. Whereas now you might be able to gain access to these assets just with a few $100s.
Well, that's really cool. Well, for now we have fantastic future for blockchain based on your guys, on your opinion. Thank you so much. And just to sum up, I would like to first of all to say that recently we signed cooperation between Aleph and RioDefi, and as you see, James and Jonathan, they have quite a broad view regarding blockchain space and quite a great experience itself. So I'm really excited about this partnership and the integration of Aleph in RioChain that will give lots of opportunities for RioChain users, first of all, and also the whole ecosystem. So thank you so much. Thank you for your time, guys, for coming here today. Actually, like a Zoom meeting, but anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Katerina.